Hello there, it's Paul here and welcome along everyone. Yes, another string pull art project. Now when I was showing my wife Wayne's channel with the various string pull arts, she asked me to make her one with the feathers, and if you haven't seen that, there will be links at the end of the video and down below in the description for Wayne's channel, so please do go and check it out because he has absolutely mastered it, and I don't know whether I will come anything close to that, especially as I'm also working on a smaller piece of wood. Now I've got a piece of oak here. I've hot glued this to a waste block and it's 100mm by 27mm. So the idea is that I'm going to turn what will be the back. I'm going to do this on the basis that I end up with a fairly flat back with a recess to mount it on the chuck, and then after that I will then turn it around, flatten off the surface, may do a little shape or something on the edges, and then work on there. 2 or 3 videos ago I did the comparison between the Ebonizing spray lacquer and the black paint, and I also mentioned in there about using a homemade Ebonizing solution. So I'm going to use that on the sides and the front to try and blacken this up fairly much, but hopefully enough so that you can still see the wood grain and everything. So it will be a really good example for how this compares to things like the Ebonizing lacquer and the spray paint. Now I'll probably just do most of this shaping in time lapse because it's all fairly basic stuff and it's just going to take a few minutes on there. So the first job is I'm going to true up the outsides and then face off the bottom, and I want to make it a little bit concave so that should it sit on something flat, then like I say, I'll just put a recess in the bottom there to hold it onto the jaws. And for this I'm just going to use my Ashley Isles spindle gouge. Now the back of this I've just sanded to 400 and left it plain. Now the front here I've just created myself a nice flat surface and just a lipped area for decoration on the sides. I've only sanded this to 180 at the minute, and then I'm going to use my homemade Ebonizing solution. And just to recap, the way I've done that, I've used, when I made that a couple of 3 years ago, it was just distilled vinegar, which I'm sure other vinegars will work as well, and dissolved ordinary wire wool in there, which you just need to make sure it's degreased wire wool. The whole process to dissolve it properly, as long as you don't put too much wire wool in, takes probably about a couple of weeks, but you could actually use this after 3 or 4 days. Now I'm just going to brush this on. I've got a board just to protect the lay bed, and you'll see there as it goes on, instantly it's turning the wood black. Now I'm going to build this up because we're adding moisture to dry wood. The grain is going to rise, which is why I've only sanded it to 180 at the minute, and I will go through the grits each time and recoat it with the Ebonizing solution. So you can see here as well that this is all dependent on the tannins in the wood, and I've got a piece here which I don't know what that actually is, whether it's sapwood or something like that, or something that's in the wood has not took so much effect, so that'll actually be quite interesting to keep, whether it be on the top or the bottom. Now this has been sanded through the grits all the way up to 400, and it's had one more coat of the Ebonizing solution applied to it, and this is now really as smooth as you'd expect 400 grit paper to be. So there's been no rise of the grain when you put all that moisture on there. Now this is what I like about the Ebonizing solution compared to like the Ebonizing spray lacquer. You can see the entire grain in this piece of wood, and this has had probably 4, 5, 6 coats of it, and it still shows everything up. It's not going to absorb any more darkness in there. I'm just going to apply a coat of sanding sealer, maybe a couple of coats. This should not rise any more with the grain, so it shouldn't be any more issues. And the reason for this is, you'll see it brings off the black, and hopefully this will help to seal the wood so that when I put paint on here, that it doesn't pull all the black colours. But a good tip, if you want to help dry things up quicker, if you don't have a hairdryer or a heat gun in the shed, I mean, my wife certainly wouldn't let me have a hairdryer here, just use your compressor air. And that will dry out a lot quicker. So the sand and sealer is dried on here. I think this top piece I gave about 4 coats in the end, and the edges have had a couple, and you can see the back still all very plain. I'm going to have this piece at the top. Now, dimensions wise, this is, the face here is about 85mm, which is about 3¼ inches. I've just got a piece of scrap plywood here, and because of this, I think I would ideally like to get 3 feathers on here. I probably won't be able to. In actual fact, I might only go for 2. So because of that, the main part of the feather, I can really only do about 40mm each way. So on my scrap piece of plywood here, I've just put some pencil marks, which are roughly about 10mm apart, and I've just thinned down some 4 lots of paints with the flow medium, and I have actually labelled each of them up with a letter so I know what colour. So I've got violet, and I've gone for gold, red, and finally turquoise. And at the moment I've just put a blob of each paint in each of those 10mm marks. Now, when I watched Wayne do this, he had his piece of string so it's soaked from the end, which I don't think you need to do, because the idea is, once you've got this laid down, the idea then is to pull your piece of string up on the outside like that. So having pieces at each end that you can hold on to should work absolutely fine, and hopefully become a lot less messy. And I will just pick up my piece of wool now. So it's soaked in the 4 colours. Place that down where I want it, and I'm just going to use a separate stick. Pull it up like that. So this is, I can already see this is totally different from Wayne's. His seemed to be more stringy-fied, where it might be that I've just got too much paint on. So I'm just going to re-roll them back in there. I'll now do the same on this side. And pull the string that way, and to finish off, just pull the string down the centre. So I'm going to repeat this again on this side. I'm going to leave it so it hasn't got so much paint on it. Just going to stretch out the string a bit rather than pat it right down. And that probably looks a little bit better. Just get a bit more paint on there. Stretch out the string again to push it down. And then finally I've got to say it's different. I'll let that dry now and then see what it finishes up like. Now I've just finished this off with 2 or 3 coats of spray lacquer. I did sign the back and I gave that a coat of sanding sealer and then just 1 coat of the spray lacquer as well. Now the feathers haven't worked out as well as I'd hoped they would. This one on the left is more of a solid colour. The one on the right does have a little bit more of a defined pattern. Now the first problem was that the main body of the feather was only about 40mm, and with it being so small there was so much paint on the wool that it just really had nowhere to go other than just spread out as one mass. And where I did the second one there clearly wasn't so much paint on there. The other thing as well, that I do like the 4 individual colours, but I think that might work better if they'd have been mixed up a bit more, so that they more merged into one, so that it created more stripes rather than 4 bands. It's another experiment. If nothing on this, I mean, I really do like this light patch on the top here. Ebonizing solution turned out absolutely brilliantly, which this is a good example of the best way to use it. Oak has a high tannin level, which is ideal for something like an ebonizing solution like this. I think it works a lot better than the ebonizing spray lacquer or even paint, because you can clearly see all the grain through here, and it's given that dark enough effect then just to highlight off all the paints. Now if you use something like Sapele, it would go almost jet black, and you could at least sand it back a bit to get the effect that you wanted. Now there's a lot of other woods which the ebonizing solution will work on well with high tannin levels, but you will have to just do a search online for them. At the same time, there's an awful lot of woods which it will have no effect on because there's no tannin levels in the woods. However, I have heard that some people actually use like a tea solution to soak the wood first, as tea contains tannin, and then they'll put the ebonizing solution on. It's another video with experiments. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. Hopefully you've took something from this, even though I haven't got the perfect feathers on there. Certainly do leave comments below on your thoughts. So thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next project video.